So again, thank you so much for having me here at this really outstanding conference camp. Yesterday was already amazing and the venue is for sure. I've been invited today to speak a bit about our collaborative art and science programs at Ars Electronica. And I've brought some examples of what we do in this field, and I will also try to give a brief insight on the impacts for us at Ars Electronica and why we do this. So now, so Ars Electronica is basically a culture organization in Linz, Austria. It's between Vienna, Salzburg and Munich, somewhere in a city with 200,000 inhabitants, so quite small scale at the end. And we're working since 40 years now on the intersection between art, science, technology and society. We do this always by reflecting what the digital revolution really means, has an impact also for individual people and also for the society in general. This, what you see, is our museum, the Ars Electronica Center. It's located along the Danube in Linz, and it is our venue for educational programs mostly, so we invite kids and families and of course a lot of school classes to come to the Ars Electronica Center, try out different kinds of technologies, but always they are mediated through our facilitators and through our staff to really engage them in a critical discussion around these topics. The Ars Electronica Center is only one part, and I quickly introduce just the ecosystem of Ars Electronica, because actually it started all with a festival dedicated to digital culture and digital arts, and this is always staged in the beginning of September, so you're very much invited to come to Linz at the end of the summer. It's from 5th to 9th in Linz. It's usually a nice time, and you will meet about 100,000 other people who are really discussing every year a specific topic, and we invite artists, designers, scientists, researchers, engineers, entrepreneurs, philosophers. So it's a really mixed group always coming together, and this is also the core value, what we say about the festival. We use this platform also to stage the winners of the Prix Ars Electronica, and I always call this the treasure box of Ars Electronica, because we usually don't curate that much on our own. We really try to choose and connect to the best-minded people in the world, and those are the artists and designers we're working with. So we regularly get about 4,000 submissions each year, and a jury is then selecting those who are really singled out for prize competition, but we also present several of these projects every year at the festival. And we have own research and development lab who facilitates usually our art and science residencies. So we have the luxury of having people in our house from various disciplines who really be able then also to function as a mentor, function as a facilitator when we do residency programs with scientific organizations. And one other activity I would like to mention is our educational program, the Uniting Create Your World program, because it really translates everything we do at Ars Electronica to this level for kids and youngsters. So the festival is held in parallel, the prize competition is held in parallel. All the activities we do are always translated also for kids and youngsters. The festival itself is, I think, the one we are most renowned for, and we really try to go out from this white cube classical museum spaces to the cities, to our city, to Linz. And we, for example, utilize the main square of Linz. We utilize the Danube banks of Linz to stage cultural programs there. We go to the universities in the city center, to churches. Last year, for example, were 3 churches also involved in the program, and a big industry venue which functioned as the main event venue, which I like the question about the venue of the fish market, because we really see that all these former postal service managers and officers are coming now to the festival, so also the visitors are changing a bit. I would like to show you a short video because it represents quite well actually why people chose to exhibit at Ars Electronica or showcase parts of Ars Electronica and why they want to be a part of the community of Ars Electronica.
Bei der Ars triffst du Leute, die Ähnliches denken, irrsinnig gut das längst gedacht haben und schon viel weitergekommen sind. Und plötzlich ergibt sich da wieder ein völlig neuer Reboot, ein Neustart für das nächste Jahr. In Wirklichkeit 1000 Ideen, die im Kopf surren und brummen. Es ist ein unheimlich belebendes, aber extrem anforderndes Event.
Es ist am Ende des Tages so, dass man sich eigentlich jedes Jahr überprüfen muss, ob diese ganze Anstrengung noch immer gut für einen ist. Aber es ist so, dass es mir einfach nur so massiv Spaß macht. Dass der Payback eigentlich am ersten Tag des Festivals beginnt, dann ist es wie Weihnachten. Beziehungsweise wie früher, wie ich nur ein Kind gewesen bin. Das ist irgendwie fantastisch und da fühlt man sich schon privilegiert, dass man eigentlich an einem Ort ist, wo scheinbar die richtigen Menschen zum richtigen Zeitpunkt das Richtige machen.
Like every year, I come here and I see a lot of amazing art and I get very inspired. I take all that brain food and it makes me want to go home and start writing and working on new projects for the future. The thing that is most important to me about this festival is the fact that there's a strong emphasis on philosophy. People aren't just coming here and showing off interesting things that they've created, but they're talking about the larger implications for humanity.
Ich glaube, dass es eine Plattform sein kann, um über ganz wichtige Themen zu sprechen, in diesem Dreieck zwischen Kunst, Technologie und Gesellschaft. Und was ich eigentlich ganz schön finde, ist, dass ein größerer Fokus auch auf kritischen Themen liegt, dass es wirklich darum geht zu fragen, so was macht diese neue digitale Ökonomie mit den Menschen und was sind sozusagen auch die Rückseiten davon. Also nicht nur Error sozusagen und Fehler in der Technologie, sondern eben auch wirklich für die Individuen und für die Gesellschaft.
C'est un des plus grands festivals en la matière. Ars Electronica résonne toujours comme étant un des plus grands, il est très professionnel. En fait, il regroupe un peu tout le monde de ces arts numériques, que ce soit au niveau des organisateurs, des curateurs, des directeurs de lieux, mais aussi tous les artistes en fait, que finalement on rencontre quelquefois dans d'autres festivals et que là on a l'impression que c'est un peu un rassemblement général de toutes ces personnes.
I've been fascinated about Ars Electronica since a long time. I always wanted to be part of the network and the community. It's every day like something new and every room and every place is something very, very exciting and big. All the people I'm meeting is people which I've been probably researching in my life or been connecting online. I feel honored to finally meet and be part of this network community.
Well, we came to Ars Electronica for the first time last year with the MA Interaction Design Communication students, and it was a fantastic experience for them. They loved it. They still talk about it as sort of one of the most enlightening and enlivening experiences of their time studying. Honestly, I think the highlight this year has been the critical mass of people I respect and admire being in one building. I can't move more than sort of 2 or 3 meters before running into something else I want to see or someone else I want to talk to. So, you know, this kind of factory of ideas that's been set up down at Post City is definitely having a powerful effect.
I like how it's very different during the day and during the night, because during the day it's more of a interaction and learning, educating each other, whereas at night it's more like a almost festival. You celebrate and we party together. It's a good combination that it's happening every day.
It's kind of a milestone every year to go and check what other colleagues are doing. It's good to be here, but not only to gather more visibility for yourself, but to share the work with colleagues and get very useful feedback and give feedback on other people's work.
Quand je viens ici, j'ai l'impression d'accélérer ma propre pensée. Il n'y a qu'ici que j'entends des choses absolument nouvelles. Esthétiquement, je reste à ce que j'appelle les émotions Ars Electronica. On a un sentiment d'entrer dans le monde de l'art comme on l'aurait eu dans une exposition spéciale de Matisse ou bien dans un... C'est ça que je veux dire. De pouvoir arriver à faire ça c'est quelque chose d'assez extraordinaire.
For me, Ars Electronica is a huge event that attracts like the whole global scene at one place. Is accomplishing and something that nobody else can accomplish. This is the only place I know of that you can get contemporary definitions of these new practices that are currently being done.
It's a synonym for arts, science, innovation. It's also a synonym for reinventing itself, because one of the things which I do appreciate with arts is even that it's huge, it's still very approachable.
Ich glaube, das Tolle ist, dass wir sozusagen in unserer DNA und natürlich auch in der Kernthematik der Ars Electronica veranlagt schon diese ständige Erneuerung haben. Wir müssen uns jedes Jahr neu orientieren. Wir haben einfach diese schöne Tradition, auch jedes Jahr ein neues Thema für das Festival. Und wir haben da sozusagen die Möglichkeit, dass wir unsere Auseinandersetzung mit diesen Veränderungen selber gestalten und auf eine riesige lokale und internationale Community zurückgreifen. Dieses enorme Wachstum ist ja nur möglich, weil wir Jahr für Jahr Kompetenz aufbauen, weil wir Jahr für Jahr mit immer mehr Menschen hier gemeinsam das realisieren können.
Die Essenz dessen, was die Ars Electronica so erfolgreich macht, sind nicht die Besucherzahlen, sondern die sind Konsequenz aus der sehr intensiven inhaltlichen Auseinandersetzung, die auf so vielen unterschiedlichen Ebenen, mit so vielen unterschiedlichen Partnern und Beitragenden stattfindet. Ich meine, diese Vielfalt an unterschiedlichen Meinungen, unterschiedlichen Hintergründen und Beiträgen zum Gesamten ist sowas von fantastisch und es ist so großartig, da dabei sein zu dürfen. Jedes Mal am letzten Tag der Ars Electronica denke ich mir, so, jetzt geht's los.
So of course, one of the major objectives from our side is to make a platform for all these people, scientists, artists, designers, but equally also be as accessible as possible. And one side is of course this kids program and youngsters program in parallel held, but one project I've mentioned already yesterday a couple of times is our guided tour program, in particular our community parcours. And we go out to communities we have working with in the past, we also reach out to new ones, and we try to engage at least one person of the community itself to do guided tours themselves through the festival. And of course they get training material from our side, they get also in contact to facilitators, to mediators from our side, but we mostly encourage them really to bring in their own perspectives and their own background, so they're quite free to also then connect to the artworks, exhibition, projects and topics themselves. The specific collaboration between art and science is something which is very much in the DNA of Ars Electronica since the very beginning. So one of the core objectives of the organization is really to facilitate encounters between art and science, in particular individual artists and scientists. So this is what we are very much interested in. And in 2014 we have initiated the European Digital Art and Science Program, where we try to facilitate residencies for artists at scientific organizations, and we have initially started this program together with CERN, and then later also invited the European Space Agency, ESO, and Fraunhofer, a German scientific partner, to work with us. And there the artists get the chance to go on a several weeks of residency stay in facilities of the residency of the scientific partners, and work with the scientists really for several weeks or even months. So it's not a short-term thing, it's really something which is meant for deeper engagement, for deeper encounter into these topics, and then they get the chance for an artistic production. Usually the outcomes are not really always artwork, so what usually we really see that often workshops, conferences, or just the process is the most important thing about this residency at all. And we don't ask the artists there to become scientists, so I mean, of course, they are free if they want to, but the most important thing for us that they really engage in the scientific topics in general, so they really should focus on fundamental questions. What does it mean to do this science? What does it mean for humankind? Where will it go to? They should also provide a certain reflection for the scientists if they want to. So these questions are much more relevant for us than artists stepping into a new professional field. And actually someone we have worked to for establishing the whole program is the former director of CERN, Rolf-Dieter Heuer, and he provided a really nice quote for our latest art and science publication, which I will just read out. For science and for art, you need an open atmosphere in society. We need freedom to perform, to think, and to express. Both science and art need freedom, openness, and trust. Tim Berners-Lee, for instance, had the freedom and trust to develop something. That freedom was given to him by the institute he worked for, and what he did was every bit as creative as a work of art. He could have developed anything. What he developed was the World Wide Web. And I mean, no matter if you agree or not, but that's the core of what we do in our art and science residencies, really discover something which was not discovered before, or really going for something in a field of experimentation or completely open without unnecessarily outcome. And of course we know from our experience this really needs also this openness, this place for experimentation, and we become the facilitator in this. Of course, usually it means that there need to be variation from the initial concept. It may be a back and forth process. It's usually not a linear development in art and science residencies with clear milestones. Sometimes it's really also a risk and also failure, or at least open question marks in such collaborations. So what we know is it is extremely important to matchmake people, or to facilitate linkages between people who have a mutual interest in this collaboration and also mutual respect. So a collaboration on eye-to-eye level. And in our latest residency programs, we always initiated at the very beginning of the residencies a get-together where an artist was presenting the concept and what he's doing, and several scientists were participating, and out of that, like non-formal, small conversations developed, and then you see who could be potentially interesting. Because this is really, if you work together with somebody for 2-3 months, or even longer, and sometimes it was even a year, that is really the core. And then it's also about managing expectations. So, of course, some artists are not aware of what you could do in the ESO facilities in Chile. And when we received the proposals for the calls we did, for the residencies we did there, the ESO at every second proposal said, okay, but I mean, we don't do this there. That's just not possible. The scientists are not working like this. So, of course, it is also important to have somebody understanding the facilities, the tools, the working conditions, and so on. For us as a cultural venue and a cultural organization, it is extremely important also then to realize presentations which present the DNA of the residency. And as I said, this is not usually a polished artwork at the end, it's more the process and also the learnings, capacity building maybe even. And we do this in workshops, but also lately we have developed lab exhibitions together with partners in Gijón at Laboral, and we are presenting so the outcomes in more hands-on experiments in the exhibition spaces. And of course, one important part of the art and science residencies is also educational programs. Some of the residencies request this specifically in the call. One case was also that the artist decided or wanted to do educational programs, like she's from Taiwan, Yen Tzu Chang, and she was doing a residency together with a medical research company in Germany, Fraunhofer. And she questions in her artistic work mostly what is in the age of AI and artificial intelligence possible in the emergency room. So who will be the operator of the scalpel? Will AI function in a surgery, and so on? And of course, one result was a installation at the end, but the much more important outcome for her was that she was actually doing workshops in Bremen and also in Linz with kids for 2 days, where they could scan objects in MRs and then do small-scale programs with it for creating also some installations. And we try to bring these programs also to schools. So for us, it is of course very important to go also to audiences which are usually not coming to Ars Electronica Center itself, and we try to go there in particular the region, but also on national levels, and usually with a system where we invite one scientist and one artist to do 2 or 3 hour lessons in schools, either one time or repetitively during one semester. And when it's really working well, so when it's tested and approved, we also include it in our educational program in the Ars Electronica Center, where we have different kind of lab structures, where we have mostly school programs. They come in during the semester with their schools and learn about the subjects. Then something what I've mentioned, I think, already within my talk, but it is extremely relevant that besides showcasing the results, engaging citizens in the scientific topics, we can also provide a facilitation role for artists. So, of course, for us, it's much more easier to knock on the doors of an organization like CERN and ask them for a collaboration than for an individual artist. And we also have experts who can really facilitate this collaboration and this residencies then at the end. I mean, you probably see many EU logos within the whole slideshow. Many of these programs are funded through either research or culture or collaboration projects from European funding schemes, like also this European Artificial Intelligence Lab. And we have invited a lot of partners from all over Europe, and actually it's even going beyond, to really not focus on the technological developments of artificial intelligence, but bringing artificial intelligence out there to citizens, making them understand what AI is, to be able to critically reflect on this topic. And I think this is really the core of Ars Electronica. We try to give them the tools to be able to take part in this whole discussion, and then also be able to choose what they want to do and where to take part at the end. The outcomes of art and science programs can have different phases. So in some kind, or in some types, they are more artistically driven, like the one from Semiconductor, who went to CERN for a 2-month residency, and they worked basically on the material nature of our world. But what they do really is to understand how technology mediates our experiences, and in particular here, of course, in scientific contexts. And they worked for 2 months at CERN, and then actually CERN invited them regularly until now, I think, back for really encounters with their scientists. Sarah Petkos was invited, I think, 3 years ago from the European Space Agency, and she proposed a nice, challenging proposal where she said she would like to send a robot to space, which was purely deciding on artistic thinking and nothing connected to scientific research. For her, she didn't really produce an outcome. For her, the residency was really this discussion on the societal impact and also society-driven aspects from the European Space Agency. Yet some of the residencies we do, or projects in general we do, have also a more applied direction. So some of them are even designed to feed into innovation programs, and probably the most popular or renowned one currently in Europe is the STARTS program, called Science, Technology and the Arts, and it poses the hypothesis that arts and designers can play a very important role in innovation contexts. And it means that basically artists and designers are sent also to companies, and they are then supposed to really work on projects, on products, even maybe on services, so actual outcomes which have a very human-centered approach and are relevant to our society in general. I've just brought a few examples. You've seen already one in the video about Future Flora, which is about vaginal bacteria, and it's a speculative project where she's more raising awareness about the fact and including this in citizen science approaches. So she's really addressing this question and trying to make do-it-yourself approaches, a harvesting kit in this case, which is not realized, so it's speculative, but it's more about this raising awareness aspect. And then a very technological project, a 3D printed steel bridge in Amsterdam, where designers, the citizens, citizens, but also policymakers and researchers, and I think 20 different industry companies collaborated to realize this bridge. And I also brought the winners of this year, so that's just selected for, I think, 1 month now. One is a citizen engagement project on urban planning in Barcelona, in the very city center of Barcelona. And I mean, what I love so much about this project, we are living in a world that companies like Uber or Airbnb have the biggest data on city structures, and they are not providing this, obviously. They really worked for several years to work with citizens with various backgrounds in this very city and collect data for future urban planning. And the other project is a design duo, and they hijacked maybe the Amazon Echo. You can print this at home. You can do this. That's a small mushroom, a parasite as they call it, put it on the Echo, and it's keeping the Echo constantly busy, so it can't hear what is going on in the apartment. Only you announce it one name, and when you say that name, it will react. But everything else will keep between you and the people in your apartment, and not for Amazon. And something we are just starting, so I have no results yet, is a scientist in residence program. We have actually just received yesterday the funding confirmation from the EU, so we are quite happy to do this within the next years. We have already realized a small prototype where we invite scientists to propose possible projects where they are going to the artist studios. So it's a reverse model of residencies, and it is much more about really engaging again in this art thinking. What we do here is not really creating projects, results, or like design thinking really results, but here we really want to try to engage the scientists together with the artists on thinking about the actual problems. So what is the problem? What one step before creating a solution for this? Maybe doing something in a more conceptual way. Also this one, we are just starting. An American artist will come to Ars Electronica next year to work with our community in Linz on migrant issues. So they will be here for 3 months at Ars Electronica and do 6 or 7 small-scale prototypes, projects on the migrant topic. And just to close, we are also trying to bring what we do in Linz to places all over the world. Sometimes this may be a large-scale exhibition, so we are also doing things for companies, for industry, for Volkswagen, Hyundai and so on very large scales, but sometimes also community or people just come to us and ask us for collaboration, as we did, for example, a Fab Lab collaboration where we provided Fab Lab experts and also infrastructure for a Fab Lab in Nigeria. And one final project we are working in this field of art and science also very much on the conceptual side, and companies come to us and ask us also to work on specific questions they have in their companies, and we invite then artists, designers, entrepreneurs are usually part of the groups, and philosophists to really develop these topics. And it's not an applied project they're developing in these days. It's like this year we have a topic of the future body or future humanity, so it's more on conceptual levels. It's the same. Yes, and if you want to see more of Ars Electronica, I would highly invite you to the festival this year in beginning of September, as I said. And another opportunity would also be to go online. We have a huge archive with all of the fantastic projects we have been received, or we have received from artists and our collaboration partners within the last years. So thank you so much.
Hey, that was amazing, really nice. I'm curious about your when you mentioned that when you combine scientists and artists together, actually the output is not the most interesting; it's the process. And I would like to know how to explain the process to the people. Actually, the most interesting part of it.
I mean, the most interesting way, of course, is to invite the artists themselves. So we try to facilitate but workshops where the artist is participating and then joining a discussion on what he or she learned in this process, which tool they used, which problems occurred, and this is obviously very limited to the people who enjoy these specific workshops. We always follow the artists also with blog interviews, so every month during the residency process they need to do a blog interview with our experts, and so those questions are then also transferred to the public. And of course they are then also meeting our facilitators and our experts, our educational experts, and we try, if the topic itself fit, also to include this also in the educational programs.
Thank you. I was wondering how it works with the scientists. I mean, like, not all the scientists are really happy to work with the artists, and vice versa, probably. And okay, in the big organizations that you mentioned, like ESO, ESA, or CERN, there's a lot of researchers, and I guess you can just filter those who are happy to work with. But are they always the same people, or depending on the project, you somehow choose, or someone chooses them? How does it work?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So first of all, it needs to be a type of person who wants to collaborate. I think that's the basis. And then it's also a way of, as I said, to matchmake people who have a personal connection. So you need to have an empathy to each other to really collaborate. And we usually don't facilitate so many residencies with the same scientists, but they need to say voluntarily yes to this. So that's why we make these small events where the artists can propose the concept to some of the scientists, and then also a scientist can say no. I don't want to work with, but we also had the case, for example, where one of the artists presenting the concept and was heavily criticized by the scientists because what they were proposing was just not correct scientifically. And then it was a process that some of the scientists said, hey, but we want to work on this topic and we will guide you or we will make this collaboration happen. And there were two scientists who really enjoyed this then for 3 months with the artists. So it's a case-to-case decision, and it's really about this personal collection at the end. But yes, they need to enjoy this collaboration.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have many questions, but I'll try to just focus on one that I'm very curious about, which is connected to this, the scientists going for a residence with artists. Because you mentioned something as in the scientists going there before finding the solution to some problem. But I guess in science, we deal with a lot of uncertainty connected to the solution, right? So it's very hard to predict when we are close to a solution. So I'm very curious to understand what is exactly what scientists take, or if you could give one example of one of these collaborations where the artists might help scientists in their research projects, or if it's always something more of a parallel project.
So we don't have a realized finished project at the end, so we didn't conclude these impact sessions with both scientists and artists. I can definitely tell more about this in a year, but what we are sure of that these projects are able to offer a dedicated space which is not allowed in the institutions of the scientist itself. So it offers a space of experimentation where the scientists as well as the artists are able to maybe work on topics they would not be otherwise working in their daily practice. And that is how we hope at least, to be able to really step a bit outside of the box and work on a specific idea. There is no necessity of an outcome specifically for this. So it doesn't need a research paper, it doesn't need an artistic project. Yet we know that we are on the stage currently where one couple is having the first conversations, or they are having conversations for 9 months now, but now it's turning into a movie project. So it's probably more projects facilitating both sides, like interviews, and also keeping in perspectives from both sides, and not necessarily an art work or a science paper. But yeah.
Okay, so just yes, afterwards, because we're running out of time and we'll keep it short. Now maybe have time for 1 or 2 questions. George, you're waiting, yes. So maybe you, and then just another question. Thank you.
Veronika, I'm baffled because this is spectacular, and I'm quite envious that you have something like this and we don't have that in the Netherlands. You know about the Waag. Philips had a wonderful collaboration between scientists and artists in the 50s and the 60s. You probably know that, and wonderful things came out of that. For instance, the CD was born there. It's over. It's completely over. And what happened, and what makes you so successful?
I mean, it's a constant fight, to be honest, because the discussion was yesterday also part of the conference. It is, of course, a big problem to confirm or to provide the sustainability of these projects. They are always one-time funded. We always need to look into further opportunities to keep them ongoing and ongoing. But I think it is really also a result of this ecosystem we have at Ars Electronica. I know many organizations who have a museum or have a festival, but we really have this bridge between showcasing things, testing things, discussing things, and then our own research facilities where we have these experts in-house. But yeah, but there are for sure others out there as well who are great.
Thanks. So one last question there, please, Bernard here.
Thank you so much for presenting your project. I think it's incredible, and this is incredible that you guys are connecting those two fields that still for many people are very far away from each other. I was wondering how do you select those artists and scientists? What is the process? What are you looking? Is there a theme every year that that the festival has, or for the residency? Are there any factors that you have in mind while selecting?
Yes, so for the residencies we do open calls, and usually the topic is linked to the scientific partner. So for each of the residencies we of course search for a research partner, and then we co-decide what possible topic it can be. And for the festival, we decide every year a specific topic of the festival, and that is then also very much deciding the selection of the artists, the projects, the collaborations. This year it is the midlife crisis of the digital revolution. So we are 40, the digital revolution is a bit older, and we are again discussing what was the impact of the last 40 years and where we want to go to in the future. Last year it was, for example, error. So we always link the decision and selection of artists to these topics, but we invite them when we travel. They apply through open calls. They write us directly. So there are a million different possibilities of engaging.